Welcome back to our channel. We invite you to embrace the moment by liking the video, sharing your reflections in the comments, and subscribing to journey with us through our latest stories. Some tales linger in the shadows, too poignant to confess yet too vivid to forget, especially in the warmth of summer. I have reached the age of 18. Everything seemed transformed. Maybe it was just my emotions, or maybe it was the bond we had built over time. Benjamin had always been a steady presence in my life, offering guidance and support in ways that truly mattered. And then one night, everything transformed. Linger a while and hear the story unfold. For this is the essence of reality. With my mom away at a conference in another city, it was just me and my stepdad, Benjamin, sharing the quiet of the house together. This was not an unfamiliar experience. She journeyed frequently for her career, and our family had grown accustomed to it. Dynamic had always been effortless. My mom was the nurturing force, always ensuring that everything flowed effortlessly, while Benjamin embodied a relaxed, carefree presence as my stepdad. He had a gentle demeanor, seldom probing too deeply, and possessed an effortless ability to bring laughter into my life throughout my teenage years. There was always a sense of ease in his presence. I found myself drawn to the unique qualities he possessed, contrasting sharply with the absence of my biological father during my childhood. Benjamin brought a warmth that enveloped me, always making me feel included and cherished. That was the conviction I had held deep within me. Until that summer, the shift was gentle, marked by a lingering gaze, an extended silence in our exchanges, a compliment that carried an unexpected weight. Perhaps I was simply lost in my thoughts. As I reflected on my journey into adulthood, I realized that the way I perceived relationships had transformed, just as others had often suggested it would with time. Yet, there was something about Benjamin's calm demeanor that always reassured me. It was difficult to articulate, but on a serene evening, a few days after my mother departed, I began to truly feel the weight of it all. The moment we settled in to watch TV together felt familiar, a gentle ritual we had shared countless times before. Yet this time he drew nearer. He rested his arm on the couch as we watched TV, a familiar presence that had always been comforting. The way he inhaled deeply. "You've truly blossomed, Olivia," he remarked unexpectedly. His voice carried a gentle warmth, more tender than ever before. I chuckled softly, attempting to dismiss the moment with a hint of shyness. Indeed, that's the way it unfolds as moments drift by. I offered a light-hearted remark, wishing to dissolve the peculiar tension that had quietly woven itself between us. His smile was warm and inviting, yet there was an enigmatic quality in his gaze. "Your resemblance to your mother at your age stirs something within me that I can't quite place." Yet it did. There was an undeniable quality in his voice, a warmth in his gaze that sent a delightful shiver coursing through me. I averted my gaze, feigning interest in the screen before me. Yet my thoughts were swirling with intensity. Did I dream it? Was I overthinking things? As the days unfolded, fleeting moments like that continued to occur, his hand lingering against mine for just a heartbeat longer. A compliment that resonated deeply, touching on something intimate. The way his gaze lingered on me when he believed I wasn't aware felt charged with unspoken emotions. Yet, an unvoiced change lingered in the air between us. A week went by and uncertainty lingered in the air, leaving me to ponder my next steps. Yet, I tried to push aside the peculiar sensation that stirred within me whenever Benjamin entered the room. Perhaps it was merely a figment of my thoughts. Moments. Perhaps I was lost in the pages of a book. Lost in fleeting moments, I whispered to myself repeatedly, until the night of the storm arrived. The afternoon had marked the beginning. Dark clouds gather, enveloping the sky as evening approaches, creating a captivating embrace of shadows. The rain fell steadily, tapping against the windows with an urgency that felt almost alive, seeking to embrace the breeze. Whispered through. The trees swayed gently as the thunder rumbled, a powerful symphony echoing through the air. The walls quivered, and then darkness enveloped the space. In the solitude of my room, the moment unfolded. The unexpected embrace of darkness enveloping me completely for a fleeting moment. I found myself seated, enveloped in the sound of the storm's fury outside, caught in a moment of contemplation about whether to remain in my sanctuary or venture down below. In that moment his voice reached me. "Is that you, Olivia?" A sound echoed softly from the hallway, more intimate than I had anticipated. It quickened my heartbeat, igniting a rush within me. "Ah, indeed. I'm here. I've returned your call." A pause filled with unspoken connection. "And what about you? Is that all right?" My heart fluttered with uncertainty. It was a question filled with curiosity, a gentle inquiry that lingered in the air. Yet there was something in the softness of his voice, the way he approached the question with such care, that sent a shiver across my skin. I let out a soft sigh, a fleeting moment of vulnerability escaping my lips. Another pause, followed by the gentle echo of footsteps fading away down the stairs. I released a soft sigh. I was unaware of the weight I carried within me. Perhaps I was truly unraveling. Perhaps I was simply overthinking things. The darkness in my room enveloped me, its weight becoming almost unbearable. Before my thoughts could spiral, I reached for my phone. Gone. Certainly, I descended the stairs, drawn forward by an unseen pull. The soft, dancing light of candle flames. Benjamin sat on the couch in the living room, a solitary candle flickering softly on the coffee table. Shadows danced softly across his face. Struggling to decipher his feelings, Heg looked up as I approached. "I thought you might prefer not to be alone in the dark," he remarked softly. I responded with a quiet nod. Gliding across the room, I take a seat at the far end of the couch. The distance felt essential as we lingered in silence, enveloped by the rhythmic sound of rain cascading outside. It should have brought a sense of tranquility, yet the atmosphere surrounding us was dense, laden with an unarticulated connection. In that fleeting moment, a brilliant flash of lightning danced through the room, casting a brief glow that stirred the air with an electric anticipation. A thunderous clap resonated, its powerful echo enveloping the house, stirring a deep, instinctive response within. A shiver coursed through me, before I fully grasped the unfolding moment. Benjamin's hand briefly touched mine as he passed me the remote, a small, ordinary moment. I instinctively drew back. Warm. The expression remained unchanged. He appeared to be entertained, yet there was a lingering fear of the storms within him. Whispered voice. Softly. I took a deep breath. Not quite. He remained silent, simply leaning back against the couch, his gaze fixed on me. I reassured myself that I was merely imagining, interpreting the meaning behind each glance and every gentle touch. Yet, beneath the surface, I sensed a shift that had woven itself into the fabric of our connection. You and I were uncertain about our feelings that night. All was transformed. I found myself in the kitchen, gazing thoughtfully at the fridge, lost in a moment of quiet reflection. The storm had passed, yet a lingering unease remained within me. The memory of Benjamin's gaze from the night before still enveloped me, a lingering presence that I couldn't quite escape. I sensed the soft echo of footsteps trailing behind me. Gentle, deliberate, found rest elusive. Benjamin's. The voice was gentle, imbued with a sense of tenderness. I coaxed a smile from Esmal without looking back, simply quenching my thirst with a refreshing sip of water. I arrived. For a vessel. Yet my hand trembled slightly. I sensed his presence close behind me, so near my heart races. Olivia felt her heart race. He uttered my name with a softness that sent a flutter through my core. I lingered, my fingers tightening around the glass. There's a conversation waiting to unfold between us. His voice was soft and inviting, incomprehensible. I swallowed, feeling the weight of the moment. It's late. Perhaps we can ring the doorbell. The sound pierced the silence, sharp and surprising, evoking a rush of emotions that lingered in the air. Benjamin paused, caught in a moment of stillness. We remained perfectly still. Then he let out a soft breath, taking a moment to reflect on justice. I turned to meet his gaze. His expression held a mystery, inviting curiosity and intrigue. Yet there lingered a sense of frustration, longing. I found myself uncertain. I felt indifferent. I hurried to the entrance, my heart racing with anticipation. My heart raced as I opened it, my breath catching in my throat. The married mother lingered in that moment, with a suitcase in hand, exuding a sense of weariness, yet finding solace in a moment of peace. "Hello, my dear," she whispered as she drew me into her embrace. I took an early flight. I held her a moment longer than intended. As I turned, I found Benjamin standing just behind me. With a face that held a gentle surprise, he smiled softly. But his eyes danced toward me, only for a fleeting moment, just long enough for a delightful shiver to dance across my skin. And I sensed that this was far from finished once Mom returned home. The atmosphere in the house remained charged. If anything, it deepened. Benjamin held on to me as if unseen forces were guiding his touch. Though miles apart, his essence lingered in the air around me. In each space, with every gaze, a connection unfolds. "Good afternoon." He made an effort to reach out to me. "Olivia." I lifted my gaze from my phone, feeling every muscle awaken. My body was taut with anticipation. He lingered, caught in a moment of uncertainty. Deciding. He spoke with intention. We should find clarity there. I found myself laughing, though it felt a bit compelled. The clarity eludes us. His jaw clenched with unspoken intensity. "Your performance is captivating. Unique." I arched an eyebrow, a hint of curiosity dancing in my gaze, masking true feelings. Perhaps I've come to a profound understanding. Reality has shifted from my expectations. They existed in a realm of unspoken connection. A subtle spark danced in his gaze. "Olivia." "I never intended to," Mom's voice echoed softly from the other room. As she interrupted him, a shadow crossed his eyes for a fleeting moment. Just a heartbeat before he withdrew. "Let it go." I averted my gaze before he could catch the hint of emotion reflected in my expression. Yet as the night deepened, as I felt my mother's gaze upon me from across the dinner table, her brows gently knitted together, framing her lips. As we drew closer, I sensed the moment had begun to unfold. It was hard to tell whether that madam felt a sense of safety or a lingering fear. After Mom returned, the atmosphere in the house became charged, heavy with unspoken feelings. Benjamin endeavored to maintain a sense of normalcy, yet his gaze lingered on me, a warm presence that I could sense even as I moved about the kitchen, the intensity of it igniting a flutter within me. A meal shared or moment stretched in time. As we brushed past one another in the hallway, he maintained a subtle distance throughout the day. Yet there were instances when he would draw me in, attempting to engage me in conversation about Olivia. He spoke softly one afternoon while I lingered at the kitchen counter, feigning interest in my screen, my device. His voice was a soft caress, wrapping around her like a warm embrace. Soft, almost yearning. We must find a way to navigate through that space. I felt my fingers tense as they gripped the edge of the counter. "Let's bring clarity to our thoughts. What does that truly signify now? Everything is as it should be." I responded with a touch of intensity, shying away from his eyes. He moved in nearer. His hand glided softly along my skin. This time it felt intentional. It was a moment filled with unspoken connection. My breath caught in my throat, and for a fleeting moment, I found myself ensnared between frustration and an unnameable longing. "There's a shift in your demeanor that I find hard to ignore." He softened his tone. "Now is it fear that lingers in your gaze? Or perhaps guilt? Confusion? or something deeper that casts a shadow between us? Just as I was about to reply, I heard my mom's voice calling from the living room. Benjamin, could you assist me with these boxes? He lingered, his hand almost touching mine, but with a sigh of frustration, he withdrew and left me standing alone in the kitchen. My heart raced as I gazed at my quivering hands. Later that night, I noticed my mother gazing at me from across the dinner table. Her brow knitted together, a delicate tension forming as emotions danced behind her eyes. A touch. Her lips came together as if a question lingered just beyond her reach, the unspoken words hanging in the air. She observed the way I recoiled slightly whenever Benjamin reached for the salt, or how I deliberately chose to keep my distance from him entirely. Whatever she perceived or sensed stirred a deep unease within her, and it filled me with a profound sense of dread. A few nights later, when Mom stepped out to share a warm coffee with a friend, the house fell into a gentle hush, leaving just the two of us in a serene embrace of solitude. Benjamin discovered me in the living room, lost in the endless scroll of social media. He settled beside me, closer than he typically would, leaning in until his shoulder gently brushed against mine. "We can't keep doing this." "This," he said quietly, his voice rough with emotion. "This tension, it's tearing us apart." His words sent a jolt through me. Tearing us apart? As if there was an U.S. But before I could protest, he reached out, his fingers grazing my cheek. My skin tingled under his touch, and for a split second I didn't pull away. Instead, I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the same storm swirling in his eyes that I felt inside me. For all the wrongness of it, there was something magnetic about the way he looked at me. Like no one else existed in his world except me. And despite everything screaming in my head to stop, I let him lean closer. His lips brushed mine, tentative at first, then more insistent. My body responded before my mind could catch up, melting into the kiss as if it had been waiting for this moment all along. His arms wrapped around me, pulling me close, and for a fleeting moment I forgot where we were, who we were, what this meant. But reality came crashing back when the doorbell rang. We both froze, our breaths shallow and uneven. Benjamin pulled away slowly, his expression panicked. "What the hell are we doing?" he whispered harshly. I didn't answer. Instead, I scrambled to my feet, my cheeks burning with shame and confusion. Before I could say anything, the sound of keys rattling in the lock echoed through the house. Mom walked in, her face pale and drawn. "Benjamin," she said firmly, her voice cutting through the silence like a knife. "We need to talk." Her eyes flicked to me briefly, sharp and searching, before settling on him. There was no mistaking the suspicion in her gaze. Or the hurt. Benjamin stood up, his shoulders tense. "Okay," he said, his voice strained. He glanced at me one last time, his expression unreadable, before following her into the kitchen. I collapsed onto the couch, my mind racing. She knew. Somehow she knew. And now everything was about to unravel. The argument in the kitchen carried on in hushed tones, though I could hear the occasional rise in their voices. Words like trust and betrayal floated through the walls, making my stomach churn. I wanted to run, to escape the suffocating weight of what had happened, but my legs refused to move. Eventually, Mom emerged, her face streaked with tears. She looked at me, her eyes filled with pain and betrayal. "Olivia," she said softly, her voice breaking. Did something happen?" I opened my mouth to deny it, to protect her from the truth. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, I looked away, unable to meet her gaze. She nodded slowly, as if she already knew the answer. Without another word, she grabbed her purse and walked out the door, slamming it behind her. Benjamin appeared a moment later, his face pale and hollow. "She's leaving," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "She's taking you with her." "No," I whispered, shaking my head. "No, I'm not going anywhere." But deep down I knew it didn't matter. Our family was broken beyond repair. shattered by secrets and lies that neither of us could take back. I sat there in silence, the dim light from the living room casting long shadows across the walls. Outside, I heard the car engine roar to life, Mom's hands trembling on the steering wheel, her heart breaking with every second that passed. The tires crunched against the gravel driveway. And then nothing. Just the hollow echo of emptiness stretching out before me. Benjamin stood behind me, frozen like a statue carved from guilt and regret. He didn't say a word, but his presence was suffocating. Like the weight of everything we'd done had finally collapsed around us. My fingers brushed against my lips, where the memory of his kiss still lingered. But instead of warmth or passion, all I felt now was shame. A bitter, unshakable shame. We messed up so badly, I whispered, my voice cracking under the weight of the truth. But the words weren't for him. They were for me. For the part of me that let this happen. For the part of me that couldn't stop it. And as I stared out of the window into the pitch-black night, I couldn't help but wonder, was there any way to fix what we'd broken? Or would this shadow always follow me, no matter how far I ran? The storm outside hadn't died. But inside me the tempest raged on. Somewhere deep down, I knew this wasn't just about Benjamin or Mom. It was about who I was now, who I'd become because of these choices. Could I ever forgive myself? Would they? As I gazed at the starless sky, I realized something terrifying. Sometimes the hardest questions don't have answers. And maybe that's what made them hurt the most. Question to the reader. If you were Olivia, what would you do? Would you face the truth head-on? Even if it meant losing everything you once held dear? Would you stay silent, clinging to the fragile remains of your family, hoping time could heal wounds too deep to name? Or would you walk away from it all, leaving behind the people and memories that shaped you, in search of a fresh start? The choice is yours. But remember, every decision comes with a price. So tell me, what would you do? Thank you for listening to today's story. See you again in our latest story. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to receive notifications about the latest stories.